Have you or someone you know experienced unexplained health issues potentially linked to electronic warfare? Project Archimedes, in conjunction with law firm Disabled Rights Advocates, is leading a groundbreaking worldwide action against the United States government, focusing on the impacts of 5G, EMF, and other unexplained phenomena, including what's known as Havana Syndrome.
We're dealing with energy weapons,
permanent brain injuries, the unexplained, serious medical harm connected to a mysterious direct energy weapon.
It was like this piercing feeling on the side of my head.
If you've suffered from symptoms like headaches, dizziness, memory loss, or other unusual health effects that you believe could be related to these technologies, we want to hear from you. We are seeking justice for those affected by these potentially harmful technologies.
Sharp, localized ear pain, dull unilateral headache, tinnitus or ringing in one ear, vertigo, visual focusing issues, disorientation, nausea, and extreme fatigue.
This was the most terrifying experience of my life. I had no control.
By joining this movement, you could help prevent future harm and potentially seek compensation for what has been endured.
We have created a global class action lawsuit. Foreign litigants would be availed to the U.S. courts to seek recovery for those who caused the damage. All roads point back to the United States.
To learn more about your rights, potential eligibility, and how to join the movement, visit projectarchimedes.org.
So we're going to sue in the United States with people from all over the planet who qualify to be a plaintiff simply on the basis that they spend an hour or more a day within 100 meters of a 5G transmitter.
Project Archimedes and attorney Todd Callender are committed to fighting for those who have been impacted.
These are the people who can't fight for themselves. They're the ones who can't hire the lawyer.
Visit projectarchimedes.org today to find out more about joining the movement.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning, Todd Callender. It is a beautiful day for everyone except a specific judge in Wisconsin and another judge in New Mexico that has been arrested for harboring illegal aliens.
I saw that. I didn't see the one in Wisconsin, but I saw the one in New Mexico. Unbelievable. Trindagua in the guy's house. What does that say? By the way, I wanted you to see my spiffy new hat. I got some merch.
Oh, nice.
LT. Isn't that cool? I just wanted to give
That's
a shout
fancy.
out to him because he's handling all of that kind of stuff too, and makes a wonderful contribution to the discussion. So anyway, I just wanted to say hey to LT and his producer Jamie. What a sweetheart! She came visiting. As you can see, I'm not in Colorado, and it's a beautiful afternoon here.
Oh wow! Well, it is beautiful there. Yeah, the judge in Wisconsin was just announced by Kash Patel.
Wow.
She was hiding and obstructing justice and hiding an illegal immigrant in her jury room.
You got to be kidding.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. I'm just now seeing this part, so we'll maybe let the news figure this one out a little bit more before I speak too much on it. But yeah, it's a interesting headline. Speaking of which, I bet you have some more headlines for us today.
I do have headlines. It's a mixture of good and bad, and I'm sorry for folks that are stuck with my audio problems. We try. John,
you're okay.
Tried.
You're good.
Thank you. So anyway, yeah, let's get to the headlines. There's a few of them, and then we're gonna have our guests. My God, this is gonna be cool. Talk about transformative. We got Kristy and Kayleigh. Kayleigh being the person who a law was written about. And then Kelsey's an advocate that's trying to get this through the California court system. So ladies and gentlemen, hang on for these two dynamo ladies. We'll get through the headlines and then we'll get to the meat of this thing very shortly. It's worth listening to. So John, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to the rest of the Clout Hub Vax Choice family, you all are part of it. So please know that. Please know that when you share, when you comment, when you take that link and you send it around to your friends and family, you're part of the solution. That's going to be the last item of business in the monologue today. So hang around to see it because it's not all bad news, but we're not through it, right? We all know we're not through it. And you can see it by the reaction in this lady's face. I thought we had an ally in Italy. I thought, holy cow, there's a conservative lady that we're going to be able to leverage off of to make a difference in Europe. Right now, Europe's kind of falling apart. They're meandering in World Economic Forum nonsense. And so you look for somebody who might lend a hand, like the people in Romania, etc. But you got to see this to believe it. So, President Trump, thank you for what it is you're doing. Watch this, and then we can judge her by her reactions.
We put penalties on China for sending us fentanyl. We put penalties on Mexico and Canada, 25% for allowing fentanyl and allowing the borders.
Oh, well, we didn't discuss about Starlink. We've been discussing about defense space. We will work together also in the Mars missions. So there are big things to do together, but we didn't discuss it.
Conversations with the Prime Minister that changed your mind potentially about tariffs and what you plan to do going forward?
No.
Is there anything the Prime Minister said to you that changed your perspective?
No, tariffs are making us rich. We were losing a lot of money under Biden, trillions of dollars, trillions on trade. And now that whole tide has turned. We're making a lot of money. We're taking in a lot of money. Don't forget, we're taking in 25% on cars, 25% on steel, 25% on aluminum, 10% baseline. We put penalties on China for sending us fentanyl. We put penalties on Mexico and Canada, 25% for allowing fentanyl and allowing the borders to be weak. Now we're taking in billions and billions of dollars while I sit here and talk to you. And we didn't take in anything before other than the tariffs that I put on previous to Biden, which were the tariffs I put on China, where we took in up until this point probably.
Can you believe that? I mean, he's trying so hard. You know, he's talking about stopping fentanyl from coming into our country. It kills more than 100,000 people per year who overdose on this drug. Sometimes it's disguised. It's laced into other drugs. It is a weapon. It's pure and simple a weapon. And China is shipping over to Mexico and Canada the base components where it is then manufactured into this horrible, very fatal drug called fentanyl. And there's some evidence to suggest that the last Prime Minister of Canada, who I call Fidelito because he's Fidel Castro's kid, it's obvious, he was personally involved and personally enriched. And so then you see the Prime Minister of Italy, and she's rolling her eyes at President Trump, who says he's trying to stop fentanyl deaths, fentanyl importation to our country. What kind of people are these? You know, I keep saying they must be demons. And on that note, thank you, Justice Alito. The Supreme Court, by the way, also seemingly has some demons in it. Justice Alito, bless you for being on the side of goodness, points out that the ACLU brings a case in the middle of the night for the Supreme Court to grant a temporary restraining order against President Trump. The ACLU is supposed to be fighting for liberty as they're fighting for Tren de Agua. Terrorists, narco-terrorists, and they grant a freaking temporary restraining order in the U.S. Supreme Court. There is no original jurisdiction in the U.S. Supreme Court for such a case. It belongs in the federal district court. And if you don't get satisfaction there, you go to the appellate court, and from there you go to the Supreme Court. They jumped over all of these hoops. They leapfrogged straight to the justices who were waiting with paper in hand, orders in hand, to do what? To injunct President Trump for trying to save our country. They're revealing themselves, ladies and gentlemen. That's the reality. And by the way, it's not just there in the Justice Department. Right? We still have the same things. Now we find out that Jack Smith, the special prosecutor brought by Mr. Biden, I don't like calling him the P word because he wasn't. He stole the election. He was involved in trying to persecute President Trump. This is treason. Go ahead and play that piece if you wouldn't mind, Melissa.
A little breaking news, Senator Johnson, Senator Grassley just sent this to me a little bit ago while we're on air. It's a major development. You're taking a look at a letter right there that was just sent to the FBI Director Kash Patel and the Attorney General Pam Bondi. What does it say? It says that Congress has obtained evidence that shows that the Biden White House was directly involved in trying to help start Jack Smith's investigation on the January 6th probe against President Trump. Specifically, that the White House counsel's office secretly obtained President Trump's and Vice President Mike Pence's former phones and giving them to the prosecutors, basically sicking the Justice Department on his future competitor, his future rival in the 2024 election, so that they could look for dirt for possible crimes. There's a lot more coming in. There's a lot of other evidence as well of the White House involvement. Remember, 2 years ago, we were the first news agency, right here, Real America's Voice, Just the News, to report that a White House counsel was directly involved with this investigation. Now, more details, including getting, imagine this, you're the Democrat president and you go get the old Republican's phone for your prior president and send it to the Justice Department. That's what Senators Johnson and Grassley were able to confirm tonight. It's in that letter. Keep an eye on justthenews.com. We're going to get you up to speed on that.
Dear Lord above. He mentioned Senator Johnson. God bless him too. You know, we've got a lot of whistleblowers in our law firm that we've represented, all pro bono, by the way. And we were delighted to have the help of Senator Johnson's office. When you file whistleblower complaints, you have to provide it to political representatives, your political representatives. Not all of them want to hear it. Senator Johnson has been extraordinary in accepting our whistleblower complaints. So God love him. He's there fighting. If there's a real politician in Congress, that's the guy. So I hope to see more of him going forward. At the same time, the attack continues. Every liberty is under attack, just as what you heard as it relates to President Trump. But digital ID is a thing, right? They're still moving forward with that. To do what? Oh, well, let's use this as an excuse, says the liberals and commies in Congress. We'll use digital ID just against the people coming across the border illegally. But look at that name, Palantir. Dedicate it to memory, because they're also the ones that helped design all the bioweapons. And they've been effectively intelligence operatives throughout the COVID pandemic. They are very much involved in trying to make sure everybody is either dead or transformed into a new species. Palantir. You might find it interesting to look at their stock and who owns it. They are heavily invested by a lot of politicians. I hope, President Trump, you don't own that, but a lot of them do. So digital ID, this is a Trojan horse. Reject it, because if they'll use it on illegal immigrants, they're going to use it on you. No different than here we prevailed in the U.S. military to stop the COVID shots, and what's happening? They're trying to roll out the same stupid hydrogel in influenza A fluid. Right? These influenza shots are now being compelled in the military in place of the COVID shots. It's the exact same stupid poison that we found. Lisa McGee has done a magnificent job of detailing it. There was a case in our law firm where a sailor on the USS Reagan said, I don't want to take your shots. We took the time to brief out to the ship's surgeon as to what's in these shots. And when he actually took the time to read it, he's like, yeah, I don't think we should be doing this. So one ship at a time, we can beat this. One company at a time, one battalion at a time. One air wing at a time. We've got to stop this. Don't take the poison. Read what's in it. We've published reports. You can find them on Vax Choice. We are also now publishing it in the news. So please take the time and send that information off to everybody, because we are not safe. Those are genetic modification and poisonous shots. Now, having said all that, juxtapose the fact that the DOD is trying to get people to take these stupid flu shots, but we got good news. It's extraordinary news. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, said the most extraordinary thing. I'm going to let you hear it come from his mouth. We worked for 5 years to hear these words. Please listen carefully and share the good news.
We're also welcoming back former service members who were wrongly forced to leave the military. More than 8,700 service members were involuntarily separated for not taking an experimental COVID-19 vaccine. Others were more informally pushed out or decided to get out. We are welcoming actively back those warriors of conscience. We've sent letters out. We're seeking them out. We want them back. They never should have been forced to come back quickly. Personnel and Readiness Department is working in real time to make that process more and more efficient, more and more direct.
Yeah, thank you, Secretary Hegseth. Well done. You chose your words very carefully, by the way, and I took note. You characterized the shots as experimental, and that's exactly the way we characterized them in our lawsuit all the way back in August of 2021. It's actually in the pleadings. Why? Because they were experimental to some extent. We later found out that they were actually planned as poisonous bioweapons. So it's possible that Secretary Hegseth could have gone that far and said these are bioweapons, but the implications of that would have been extraordinary because it implies war crimes and violations of the Biological Weapons Treaty, which has functions that are required to be carried out once that utterance, that declaration, that finding is made. So he picked his words very carefully. Note that he didn't call them emergency use authorization or even licensed. Right? They call them biological license application approved. These are approved. They were never approved. It was all a fraud, and he chose that word experimental very, very carefully. God bless you for so doing, Secretary Hegseth. We hope to be helpful to you in many ways on this crusade to fix our military. And by the way, all said and done, it was 400,000 service members who said we're not taking the shots, and you all were a part of that. So God bless you, and thank you for that. It's transformative, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. These ladies are transformative. It's what you can do too. It takes one to make a difference. In this case, it's two, but this is the way we take our society and our country back. I am really excited to introduce you to these two lovely ladies, Kristy von Waldburg and Kayleigh Kozak. Welcome, ladies, to Truth Be Told. My Lord, what a story. Okay, so let me just try and lay the ground here a little bit. Kayleigh, you were the victim of an attack, and you were facing your accuser over and over in court, and this was difficult for you. So you decided to do what? Give us a little bit of background, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Well, thank you for having us on. So I was sexually abused by my PE teacher, who was also my club soccer coach. And when he took his plea deal in 2007, we were told that he would be on lifetime probation. And so imagine my surprise in 2020 when I learned that lifetime probation was not lifetime, and that if that probation was lifted, that I would in fact have no protection. And
Wow.
I just couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that it was all or nothing. And so I knew that something had to change. And that was the catalyst for Kayleigh's Law, which gives victims true natural life protection from their convicted perpetrator, regardless of any circumstances, the terms of their probation, anything that may happen. What makes Kayleigh's Law so unique is that it's served at the time of sentencing, rather than having to continually go back to court and have your life disrupted at the hands of the system and the prosecutor.
Fabulous. So, and I'm going to get to you in one second, Kristy. So what this means, if I understand you correctly, at sentencing, this person has a no contact order and they're on probation, but they can't ever be in your space ever again, or they violate the order. Is that right?
Yes, but it's very circumstantial depending on where you are, what the terms are. Every state handles these things differently. The level of the offender, it's actually very complex. So it's been 4 years of working through the obstacles and the difficulties that victims should never have to face.
No, never should. And that is no small feat. And I think, Kristy, that's where you come in. How did you get involved with this and with Kayleigh, and what's your background? How'd you get here?
Okay. Well, thank you for having us. And I'm so honored to be part of this. In 2019, my twin sister and I found ourselves in a courtroom after 35 years facing our childhood sex abuser.
Oh, Lord.
And it wasn't for our case, but it was for another case. And we were never able, because of statute of limitations, to prosecute, but we assisted the prosecution. And the judge at the time of sentencing allowed us to submit what's called a victim's impact statement letter.
Yes.
And people might know a little bit more of that because of the USA gymnastics team. A lot of those women, though they weren't able to prosecute in that situation, they were able to make statements. And so the judge can use that in their decision making for the sentencing. And that's why when in 2019 I experienced that, and then came back. 2020 hit. So many of us came home during COVID.
Yeah.
And I was online just kind of learning more and more about like human trafficking and just the way the legal system has failed victims and survivors across the board. And that's where Kayleigh came in. She did a podcast, and a friend of mine had my sister and I on, and then I watched her story. And I remember sitting in my living room thinking, oh my gosh, we need this law in California. And so Kayleigh and I became connected. And, I've been following her journey. I consider her a friend, a warrior for so many good people. And so when my husband ran for city council here in our hometown, I got really connected with some of the political, like circles here in Orange County, and was connected with some people. So we were able to get the bill filed last year. However, it was blocked, and I'll let Kayleigh talk more. It's more her thing. I'm just the conduit that brought her into California, and everyone was telling us like, you'll never get it there. And I think when you tell two people that have experienced adversity, and like, I love that word transformative, you watch us. That's kind of it. Like, she's one of my dear friends. I love her to death. I'm just so grateful to be on this journey with her. It's not easy, but I respect so much what she does and the gift that God has given her through her adversity and resilience. So
well, that's
that's
such
why
an
we're here.
important part. That is such an important part of what you said, because I found in my life and witnessed it over and over again. You cannot get through the kind of adversity that you faced, or for that matter, any adversity that stops you in your tracks, without God. It's like the special forces programs and the military. You can't get through that program alone. You got to have your next best invisible friend called God to get you through it. And it gives us strength. And in this journey, ladies, you probably needed a lot of that, because what you undertook is no small feat. So Kayleigh, tell me, how did you do this? Because there's a lot of people watching this who also want to be transformative, and they will be inspired by what you two ladies did. How did you do this, and what was your motive?
Well, I want to first tell Kristy, I just adore you, and I could not do California without you. You are such a blessing in my life, and I appreciate you so much. And I hate the reason that we were brought together, but I love fighting this fight with you. I think one of the things that I really want people to understand is, when this resurfaced for me in 2020, I had no idea what I was doing. I wasn't even registered to vote. I didn't know what party belonged to what color was affiliated. I did not know anything about politics. I say this very comically. I was just a stay-at-home mom of my beautiful basketball team.
Well, it's an important job.
And
we don't discount that.
No, not at all. But I didn't know what I was doing. And so I want people to understand that I didn't go to school for this. I had no background, no education, I had nothing. I just knew it had to change. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just did it. And it has not been easy. It's been very difficult, but it's been a lot of trial and error learning, a lot of strategizing. And I know something that Kristy, really at the beginning was, last year when the bill died, she experienced that first blow. And it was hard. It is hard, where I had experienced many blows to being shot down, minimized, treated as though we are nothing. And that wasn't my first rodeo, but it brought me back to that real feeling of, oh, people are really against this and they don't care. However, there is power in that. And I say that because it exposes the other side. It exposes where people stand. And it actually gives us leverage as we continue to fight in multiple states across the nation. And that negative piece of it is more powerful. And so in this fight, you have to look for those opportunities. You have to take those and use them to create a different path forward and just re-strategize. And that's what we did. And we got further this year. And no, the bill did not advance, but the bill didn't die. That is huge in the state of California.
Sure it is.
Additionally, we obviously, it's no secret that California is very democratic, and that's who you need.
Demonic?
Demonic and democratic, both. Let's call it for what it is. We last year on the committee, we pulled a Democrat to vote yes. So she voted against her party in favor of this. That is huge.
You're celebrating one Democrat going off the reservation to join a cause that protects victims. The absurdity of that blows me away. Who wouldn't get behind this? Did anybody ever express to either or both of you why they're against it? What rational reason could anybody be against this?
Money.
That's it? Well, who's paying these gangsters?
Well, here's what it is this is my speculation, just in every state. If we do this at the time, if Kayleigh's law is a natural life injunction, I want to be very clear about what it is. It's a natural life injunction that gives a victim protection forever. We have every clause in there you could have. You can opt out because there are victims who may have, family situations that don't want this. So there's a way out. We have it till the victim or the perpetrator dies. It's very, very narrow and specific. But if we are serving a defendant at the time of sentencing, we are now taking away the future court dates that they could petition, which means how many people now don't have, not that they don't have a job, but those hearings are eliminated. So there's less work to do. Whereas California wanted it to extend from a possible 10 years to 15. Well, that defeats the entire purpose. You're prolonging a victim's suffering. You are ensuring that every 15 years there will be court and all these people will have a job to do. Whereas if you serve at the time of sentencing and it's done, it's done. There's nothing left to do. So they wanted to extend it 5 years, which is just asinine and defeats the entire purpose. And so I'm grateful for the bill sponsors last year and this year who said, no, we're not wavering in that. That's not the purpose. The purpose isn't to prolong a victim's suffering. The purpose is to give them the natural life protection that they deserve. But to go back to the point of celebrating one Democrat voting yes and voting against her party, that is huge. Additionally, in the Senate this year, we were in the Senate. In the Senate this year, in California, we did it again. We pulled another Democrat to vote yes. Those things matter. That means that we've cracked the door open and that they are willing to go against their party. They had no argument to vote no this year. They deferred to their argument last year, which obviously didn't work.
Wow. Okay. Oh, I got so many questions to go with this. First
I know.
And foremost, I want to go back to something you said in the very beginning about being a mom. And I want people to remember this because when we started this fight for the survival of our species 5 years ago, let's be real, as you said, or something to that effect. Our species is under attack. We're in a fight for souls and the demons are everywhere. And I was not really joking when I said California's demonic because it seems to have more people like those you're discussing than anywhere else. And it blows my mind. What I wanted to say is moms carried the day. I've been in this fight from the very beginning and met moms in school board meetings and city councils. Ladies were being mama bears, right? They had their cubs to protect, and there was nothing more fierce than the moms. So please don't discount being a mom. We also have to create enough people on this planet to survive. So you guys are really, really important. But I wanted to understand also, where did you get the help to get this into the legislature? Because this is already law. I think you said Colorado, Arizona, some other states. Is there a legislative champion that's helping you write this law? How do we rinse and repeat what you've done?
Well, it's not in Colorado. I wish. Colorado is just as bad as California.
Yeah, I'm from Colorado. I agree.
So I've just kind of written this myself, but like I said, trial and error.
You just wrote it.
Experience. Well, yeah, when we first did it, to go back to Arizona, because it was the first state, they had originally put it under traditional injunction, which is different everywhere. But in Arizona, that's only valid for a year. So the way that it was written was in 2021 was a victim must petition the court annually to have this. And it wasn't because that was the intention.
And hang on, when you say this, some people may not understand what the injunction means. So this being that the defendant is ordered, injuncted is the word, from doing a certain act, and that act is what? Appearing in court, seeing you, talking to you, being in proximity. What does that look like?
The language is specific to each state for what contact looks like. So we've had to be very specific about that. But any type of contact, digital, obviously proximity wise, anything of that sort, contacting third parties.
They got to stay away from you.
Yes. Yes. Because prior to this, if they weren't on probation or if their state isn't in compliance with SORNA, it's very complex. Then a victim would, if they didn't have this in place, a victim would have to petition the court to prove that they were being harassed, that they were in danger, all those things. This makes the crime itself enough to prove that this person should not be in touch with them ever again.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, Kristy, you said you'd been at this for some time. How did you get behind this? I mean, obviously this has been going on for a while because you otherwise wouldn't have had the success already in Arizona. What I'm really looking to try and understand is, did you find anybody in the legislature, in the government? Was it a district attorney? Was there anybody that helped you through this process, or you just beat down doors?
Well, it's a really good question because I do think your network. I used to build a network marketing business, and the tagline we would always say is your network is connection. My husband ran for city council, and also kind of like a lot of the moms, I was on the front lines going to our board of supervisors, going to our board of education, going to city council meetings. When everything happened 5 years ago with COVID, questioning things, and just saying no. I mean, I had to pull my youngest daughter out of school because the restrictions just didn't serve her. Yeah. And I think it was more like when you bring in the divine aspect of this, and the wonderful thing about Kayleigh is that this is what I admire about her and this bill is that she really didn't have anybody running this for her. It was her
just
intuitively using.
Love that.
Yeah. And I think when I started doing a lot of work in the human trafficking world, I was part of working with some different nonprofits and organizations. That's how I kind of made some of the connections. And then when my husband ran for city council, there was an assemblywoman, Diane Dixon, who was very passionate here in Orange County about human trafficking. So I reached out to her staff. Kayleigh was already networking with other legislators like Shannon Grove here in the Senate, who was doing work with like SB 1414. But Assemblywoman Dixon was the one that said, yeah, let's do this. So Kayleigh, I kind of just sat on the sidelines once I made the connection, and Kayleigh worked directly with her legislative team, and they drafted the bill. And when
I think we might have lost.
I know.
That's okay. Well, you can pick it up, Kayleigh, because at the end of the day, she's telling the story about you. We'll get back to Kristy.
She'll pop back. She'll come back. I think what she was trying to say was with the language. I mean, she may not have been going here, but we're very specific for each state. This isn't a blanketed. It has to be tailored to each state, because what sexual abuse in California is not the same as Arizona, is not the same as Oklahoma, and so really narrowing that gap. And that's honestly. That's one of the things. Oh, Kristy, we see. Okay. What were you? I was just trying to take over. I didn't know where you were going.
She did good too. She did great.
I know I lost connection. Oh, I was just talking. I don't know where I left off. I'm sorry. I just kept yapping. I do that on the phone sometimes.
No, it's fun. What I was really trying to get at, and I apologize for being a little bit inartful about it, is that I want your leadership. This is the perfect demonstration of leadership, organic leadership. It's the kind of leadership that makes enormous differences, the transformative ones. And there are going to be a lot of people that watch this and say, I want to do that too. It may or may not be about sexual abuse. It could be about, frankly, anything. We're trying to take our planet back, one county, one city, one state, one country at a time. And I want people to understand, what is that process? How do you put one foot down? What's the next step? How did you do it start to finish? Is there a place that people can go to for resources to figure out what you did so that they can copy that, and be a part of this, or somehow emulate what it is you've done?
Well, I feel like some of it is the grassroots organizations. Obviously, my husband and I we're connected with the Lincoln Club here in Orange County, and that's what basically connected us with Diane Dixon. She was doing a human trafficking fundraiser, and I couldn't go to that event that night, but that's how I got connected with her team. I reached out and said, listen, I have this amazing friend who's putting policy through. I would love to work with you. I knew at the time Kayleigh had been talking to some other people here in California, Senator Shannon Grove, that did the bills, SB 14 and SB 1414. But that was a heavy toll for her. So the wonderful thing about how God works is sometimes he calls you into something, you're not really sure why, and then you look back in hindsight and you understand. My husband did not get elected into the city council, but we were just talking the other day. We're like, wow, we kind of feel like we won because we didn't, because now we're in this different world. And I grew up, my parents were really kind of involved in the political scene back in Nebraska. So I had kind of watched them. But it was never really something I admired to like jump into. But I think you brought in the whole mama bear aspect, and it's like when you're in this, you're in this position where you have your children, I really do think, and Kayleigh and I've talked about this, like generational trauma is real, and trauma informed justice and trauma informed like legislative like processes are just, they're not intact. And so I feel like what Kayleigh does so great is she brings in this bright light energy, but it's stoic, it's confident, it's compassionate, but it's like not backing down. And I admire that so much about her, because and I feel like, not everybody's called to do something like this, but there's something, I believe, in this day and age that we're all called to do something. And we can pray, we can get together, or we can actively step into the role that God's calling us to do. And I literally believe that that's why we're here for such a time as that. And not everybody can get involved in policy, but it's really needed. So for those people that are listening to this, maybe in another state, and you're like, we need Kayleigh's law in our state, that's how we get in. That's the blueprint. It's who it's your network. And so
exactly
that's kind of where my heart is. Yeah.
That's where I wanted to go. So Kayleigh, obviously, both of you have been victims of this, but I'm coming to understand it's 1 in 5 little girls that are abused in the United States of America. Is that the correct statistic, or is it more?
That's what's reported.
So this is talk about an epidemic. This is a serious problem, and we don't have to go into how abuse is defined exactly. Suffice it to say, this is underage and non-consensual, or maybe it's just non-consensual. One way or another, it's sexual in nature and it's unwanted. How, if you can share with us, how do we spot these people? They seem to be in positions of trust. It's male and female. I think that the girls are abused more than males, if I understand it. But this is happening a lot. How do we, as parents, how do we teach our kids how to spot these signs?
We're going to need the rest of the day. I think the most important thing right now is to get away from the stigmas. What I mean by that is, we have been conditioned to believe that we need to look for the scary guy in the white van, the stranger danger. No, No. We have also been conditioned to believe that titles are safe places and safe people. That is not true. Just because
Like
someone is a
coach.
teacher, teacher, coach, doctor, the position of trust, pastor, that does not make them a safe person. And so, teaching our kids that it doesn't matter. I mean, even family members, that doesn't make someone a safe person. We need to be paying attention to the charming narcissist that is literally hiding in plain sight. It is not the stranger danger white van creep is not who we need to be looking out for. Not to say that doesn't exist, because I don't want to downplay that. But 91% of victims know their perpetrator. Perpetrators specifically target their victims, and there's tons of factors that are played into that. But when your child tells you that someone makes them feel uncomfortable, do not question them. Do
There's
not.
a reason.
Absolutely. And because that's part of their tactic, is they'll slowly push the envelope to see how far they can get. So if you have someone, let's say a coach, who is slowly pushing the envelope to see how far they can get, and they witness a child telling their parent, I didn't like when Coach Bob, said that to me, it made me uncomfortable. And the parent says, they didn't mean that. It was just silly. You just completely ignored your child's intuition and feelings. So now you have them questioning themselves. And if they don't feel comfortable telling you that, and they don't feel like you're going to have their back, they're not going to come to you with anything that's bigger. And so being very aware of that, not letting children be alone. Anyone who's trying to get your child alone, there's so many things that go into it. But I think really instilling in your children that just because someone is in a position of trust does not mean they're a safe person. And letting them know that the small things matter and reaffirming those feelings is a great place to start. We have to break that stigma.
I really there was two things that really caught my attention that you said there. Number one, I think you said it was a gracious narcissist or something along those lines.
Charming.
A charming narcissist. Because you find that they, at least in my experience, have sociopathic tendencies anyway, and part of that is abuse. It's not as much even a function of sex as it is a function of getting over on people. It's some strange duper's delight kind of a thing. The other part you said was really important is titles. I think that's really important for people to understand, is that a lot of times people hide behind their titles, and they use those titles as a weapon. To a weapon of authority. I am so-and-so. You don't know who I am. And cowing parents, perhaps, is what you said, getting kids separated off into a single space. I mean, did abuse, either of you jump in on this? I'm trying to understand, did abuse happen openly, or was this more along the lines of, you got targeted and peeled off from the rest of the kids? And with that said, go ahead and answer, but I want to also invite John back when he's ready. So go ahead. And if I don't know if I said it
Well,
correctly.
in my situation,
Please.
it was an adult male cousin.
Okay.
So it was a family member who had close proximity to me and my twin sister.
Yes.
And obviously I trusted him. He was, I love my family. But, I think the challenge was, it happened when we were really young. There were times where he did stuff in a public scenario. So pretty brazen. And my twin sister and I would protect each other. But I think the challenge with that is you have young children that are having to step in and be the adults in the room. And I think what Kayleigh said was profound. Kids don't make this stuff up.
Right.
We got to get past that. We got to. And I think the challenge now, we have a narrative that's spinning that's very over sexualizing children at young ages. I mean, my cousin, I remember once I was at their house, and I was like 9 years old watching cartoons, and he came up, I'm just going to say it, like, he was naked. And he started asking me very poignant questions. And as a 9-year-old, I knew that was wrong. As a 7-year-old, when he did stuff, I knew it was wrong. And so I think once we finally told people, it stopped. But the challenge was, because there's such a lack in trauma-informed responses, we perpetuate the goal. And I think the biggest challenge we have today as parents is the online activity. And so my biggest suggestion to you is get really savvy with the technology that's coming through your phone. I know it's a lot to ask people. I've had conscious conversations with my children. You have to have those conversations early because somebody else is going to have it with your children. And they're going to hear about it at school. They're going to hear about it online. So you need to have those conversations. And I mean, you can just Google different, organizations that have trainings and stuff. But I really do think it's very powerful to sit down with your children and talk to them. And I remember the day that I shared what happened to me with my kids. And I had, my girls had 2 responses. My oldest daughter was like, gross. Why would an adult do that? And my second one looked at me and she goes, I'm so sorry that happened to you, Mommy. And they were young. But I feel like what it does is it equips it and empowers them.
Yeah.
And it's anytime God brings something to the light, we have an opportunity to use it for good. And that's what I think parents should do. Like we can't depend on the schools to do the right thing anymore. So we have to be that conscious conversation.
Boy, did you say a mouthful. Schools, you mean the ones that are inviting transvestites and banana hammocks to read to our kids, pornography in the library? Yeah, I'd say so. Thank you for that. John, welcome back. I know that you've got questions that are always fruitful.
Yeah. Kayleigh, Kristy, you've essentially built a weapon for justice to build new laws into our government. This is one specific avenue, but are there other areas that you are potentially interested in pursuing to get other legislation developed in other states? And what would those be?
Well, through this, Kayleigh's law was just the initial, but I've in Arizona had 9 bills signed into law with complete bipartisan support, just solely based off of the bullshit that I'm experiencing, that I'm truly living out. And to go back to the question about getting people involved, and this is not an easy thing, and it's not for everybody, and it doesn't just happen. I just had a bill signed into law that I worked on for 3 years. It took 3 years. It was it died in committee, it was vetoed, and then it was signed into law. And it's a big deal in Arizona. And so you have to be you have to have endurance in this. And it's not easy. And I want to work in all states. I recently accepted a position. I'll be working with America First Policy Institute for the Family First campaign, just to educate, because education is a huge piece of this, because what's portrayed is not an actuality. And people just assume that the justice system and the government are here to do what they say they're doing and protect us. And that's not what's happening. And so educating people on the reality of what these laws actually mean is huge. And I am here for it. And I love it. Only in this category, though. It's my passion.
What was the law that just got passed about that you worked on for 3 years?
So the one that I worked on for 3 years, it's very complex. But so in Arizona, every state has risk levels for sex offender, but Arizona uses its own 19-question general risk assessment to assess a sex offender's risk level to reoffend. It is not based off of the crime that's committed. It is based off of these 19 questions. The lower the score, the lower the risk. I say that very loosely. Some of the questions on there are, was the victim male or female? Male is 0 points. I'm sorry, female is 0 points. Male is 3 points. Both genders is 5 points. Was the victim a family member or an acquaintance? Family member is 0 points. Acquaintance is 5 points. Was there one victim or was there more than one victim? One victim is 0 points. So if you have someone who molested a female and that's the only a female acquaintance, and that's the only victim, 0, 0, 0. If you have someone, it's just insane, or like a family member, it's so bad. This risk assessment has not been updated since 2002. We're the only state that uses this assessment. With that being said, we had approximately 5,800 level 1 sex offenders. Now that's the lowest risk level that had been convicted under 13705, which is committing a dangerous crime against a child under the age of 14. So level ones, being the lowest risk, that have been convicted of a DCAC are not listed on the DPS public registry. So the most heinous, disgusting pedophiles, because that's what they are protected because they're a level one. I say that loosely. They're a low risk, and they molested a child. Their information is not accessible on the DPS public registry until
go ahead until there's somebody
until I recognize this, because my abuser, who was a teacher who molested a 12 and 13-year-old student when I was 12 and 13 years old, and a coach, was not on the public registry. We were lied to. We were told that he would be on there. He wasn't until we wrote this law. And now they're uploading onto the DPS public registry.
That's what I wanted to understand. You talk about DPS, this Department of Public something or other, but what I wanted to impart is we are finding, as a function of our law firm, Child Protective Services is involved in the trafficking, the pimping out, and the protection of the abusers. Have you encountered that?
Oh yeah, yes.
So you're going to the fox saying, "Please don't eat the hens," but here's the hens.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. Go ahead, John. One more question, and then I think we've got to find out.
Yeah. How can people follow you, support you? Can we put up your website?
I wish you could put up my website, but it's down, and I don't know why. We're working with them.
Okay.
It's I do good work, and these things happen. I'm really active on Instagram. That's where I share most of the work that I do. Which my handle is the Kayleigh Kozak.
Okay, we'll put it into the show notes for sure. Melissa will help with that. And by the way, I'd love to have your website anyway, because people will come back to it, so that when your website is up and running, we can do that. And
of course,
same applies. What we want to do is also figure out, how do we support your efforts? Is there a GoFundMe? How do you do that? How do we be helpful?
I do have, I guess it's maybe it's a PayPal on my website. I don't know. I've never really asked for like donations or anything. I could use them because it's a very costly fight. I do have 1412 Clothing Co., which is all anti-pedophile Team Wood Chipper merchandise.
Would I really? Oh, that's fabulous. You could buy merch with a wood chipper.
It's the only solution.
It's fabulous.
Because...
But hang on. Because the one thing people don't seem to understand is they just passed a law in Russia that abusers actually get castrated, their choice of chemical or physical. So it's catching. Kayleigh, I don't know, maybe you had some impact on Vladimir Putin's outlook on this, but it's catching. So you're going the right way. All right, wood chippers it is. You got anything else, John?
I think that's good. This has been a really excellent interview. And Kayleigh, Kristy, I'm so grateful both of you took time to meet with us. Very important work you're doing.
Extraordinary work. And please, ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully. There were some real nuggets for us to take home with us. If you're parents, you've got to pay attention. I especially like the fact that you said you've got to get expert in social media and these devices that intimidate the crap out of me. I think you were talking to me because I am terrified of these things. In any event, ladies, you are really special. It takes an enormous amount of courage to do what it is you're doing, to come out here and share this with everybody else. God is clearly in your hearts, and we are blessed to have had your company. God bless you both for what you're doing. Please don't be strangers. Update us. And you might look at the podcast on Cloud and other places, because people will have questions. We'd love to have your answers. So thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.